So to dive right into this, like I said, I want to have you on because I wanted somebody at least knew of the field and knew of politics and things like that before like I got somebody on that didn't but has a lot of opinions, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you do too, but before we dive into it, I just want to kind of discuss a little bit of like this is black and white in politics.
Sure.
One thing as a consumer and trying to get more and more into politics, trying to understand like what affects what and why we should get involved and things like that is it's always black and white. It's like it's this way or this way. And to me, it's always like, why do I have to, and specifically I'm talking about Democrats and Republicans.
Sure.
And so to me, I'm like, I want to get involved. I want to vote. I want to choose, who I want to be my president. And I love kind of being middle grounded because I get to choose. Mm-hmm. And people are always like, why would you choose this person? Why would you choose that person? Well, like in 2016 election alone, I think Trump got 62 million total votes and Hillary got 65 million, even though Trump won. Mm-hmm. But that tells you that, it's always like the Democrats are wrong. And I'm like, in my mind, that's 62 million people that you're saying are wrong. Mm-hmm. Like, and the other side, the Republican, that's 65 or, whatever it may be. And I'm like, how could millions of people be wrong? So like, why do I have to pick a side? So is there like a benefit? Basically, am I asking you to be a Republican or a Democrat? Like, do you have to be a part of a party? Do you have to like choose a side? Like, why is it so much black and white?
Sure. So I want to address the first thing that you said, like actually getting somebody on here that kind of knows about politics, that studied politics. And I think it relates very well with your question is that politics and philosophy specifically, they're not black and white fields. They're completely different from a lot of different studies. I have a friend, he's a computer science major, and he was in one of my political science classes, and he saw one of the tests. Like most of the tests are take home, they're essays, they're long answer. There's not a right or a wrong. There's not a black or a white. There's not a box that you can circle, right?
Right.
It's all essays. He says, how is this even a field? Like there's not a right or a wrong answer. You can't, it's not a black or a white thing.
Right.
So having somebody that knows more about politics, I don't want to say more about politics because everybody knows about politics. It's a social issue. It affects everybody. And having somebody like me specifically, I think that studying the field just kind of makes you realize how much you don't actually know.
Right.
Somebody who thinks that they know a lot about politics probably doesn't know very much just because there's so much affecting us. Politics is such a broad thing. Mm-hmm. And those who claim to know, including me, somebody who studies politics, I don't really know much more than anybody else. It's a very complicated thing. So back to your question, the black and white, the polarization, especially in the United States. We don't necessarily see this in other like liberal democracies, especially with like a parliamentary system where you have multiple parties, 30, 40 parties. But in the United States, right, we have two main parties, the Republicans and Democrats. There's tons of people who are independents, but how many independents are represented in Congress? Mm-hmm. How many independents have actually been elected? So like you said, we have Hillary Clinton who got 3 million more votes than Donald Trump. I think you said about 65 million, somewhere right around there. Mm-hmm. So we have 65 million people who voted for another person who's not in office, and they don't feel like they're being represented.
Right, exactly.
So it's a hard thing. I feel like I said, I'm not going to be able to give you a lot of answers. I think that this podcast is going to be successful for your viewers and for you if this conversation can confuse you more than it can give you answers.
Well, good.
There's a lot of different factors in this political polarization or the black and white, and I think a lot of it has to do with human nature. We like to see things as one way or another, whether it's male or female, guy or girl, black, white, Republican, Democrat. It's just a very simplistic thing to put things into categories. And it can definitely be a problem, especially within the political field, because there's so many people that feel unrepresented by either the Republican Party or the Democratic Party.
Right. Okay, so I love that because you already answered the biggest questions like that. Black and white is, saying all of that, it makes total sense, but it doesn't because you're right. Like that's what I'm trying to say is I feel like things are so complex that I hate that we have to choose this or that way. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, and I hear people talking about this is going to help me, but I'm like, okay, well, the other person will help them. So it's like, yeah, you're only choosing your way because it might benefit you, but not someone else. And I'm always trying to pull myself out of a situation is, the whole, idea of Obamacare, it's like the idea that if I paid a little bit more in tax, it would suck. But if I could help and be a part of giving millions more health insurance, then I'm okay with that. But a lot of people my fucking insurance went up, and they don't want that, and they
Right.
get very upset,
Right. And I think that's one of the main critical flaws of a two-party system is you have one side that's trying to benefit their half or their voters, especially in a
Right.
democracy, right? You're trying to give as much as you can to your voters. You're trying to make your voters happy so that they vote for you. And a part of that can be demonizing the other side, right? By saying that the other side doesn't want this for you, right?
Right, exactly.
And so that's why I think we see such a big split in demographics between Republicans and Democrats is we have a certain like minority voters, especially, they tend to be more liberal, or older white voters, they tend to be more Republican. It's typically because Republicans are trying to expand Social Security or they're trying to expand programs for older white folks, right? But we have liberals who are trying to do things for especially minorities, right? So they're just trying to pander to their sides of the voters, and people feel like if a Republican gets nominated, I'm not going to feel represented. If a Democrat gets nominated, I'm not going to feel represented, right? And so I think that's one of the main flaws with the two-party system is we have a person who, like, let's say Donald Trump, he's in the office, he's trying to appease his base so that they'll get out and vote for him this year. But what about the people that aren't being affected by his policies, right? I think that that's one of the main flaws of the two-party system that's happening in the United States, like you were saying.
Right, I agree. So, like, as an American or even as a consumer of politics, how do you think we can try to get away from this black and white and stop pinning it on it's the Republicans' fault, it's the Democrats' fault? Every headline I read from Fox News to Business Insider, whatever it may be, it's always this group of people is doing this or this group of people is doing that. These people are wrong. How can we pull away from this rather than trying to label everybody as this one thing and trying to make politics black and white? I feel like that's what I'm trying to talk about, this black and white thing too, is I feel like I'm only fed this or that decision. Yeah. I don't have anything else. Like, I have to choose this or that. I can't analyze, like, either my family wants me to be Republican or they want me to be Democrat for this and that reason because they believe these beliefs. Well, I believe in some of those. I do, but I also believe in a lot of this as well.
Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with the human condition and our tendencies towards confirmation bias. Typically, we seek out information that confirms our own viewpoints already, which is what I really appreciate about your podcast in general, is just there's a lack of dialogue. And I think that democracy very much so relies on dialogues like this. I'm sure that many of your viewers are pretty mad at me because I support Bernie Sanders, right?
I don't know.
There's definitely some people out there that are like, you have this Bernie Sanders socialist communist on your podcast. And it's like, I support Bernie Sanders, but at the same time, I'm more than happy to talk to anybody about my viewpoints because that's exactly what our democracy relies on. There's never been a democracy without social dialogue until now. We have things like social media where you follow the pages that you agree with, and the only information that you're exposed to is information that will confirm your viewpoints. That's the problem with cable news nowadays. Is we don't have any unbiased sources except for C-SPAN. And when's the last time you watched C-SPAN?
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, exactly. It's not interesting for people to watch things that don't confirm their viewpoints. They want to feel like they're superior. They want to feel like the other side is demonic and they're trying to destroy the country. It's playing into human nature. And I mean, that's what cable news networks are doing. That's what social media is doing. And it's very dangerous for a democracy like ours. By actually having a dialogue, especially like educational dialogue, like at school, getting educated about certain issues, having podcasts, talking about issues, even if you don't know anything about politics, at least trying to understand what each other is trying to say. It's a very important first step, I think.